What's up, guys? Welcome into Good Morning Lambeau. My name is Clayton. You can check us out on packernet.com. You can find me on Twitter at Packers_access. You can email us at PackersTotalAccess@gmail.com. You can text us at 865-658-5824. Got Tim here with us live in Green Bay. Obviously, Tim, you've seen enough of this snow, right, bro? Has it eased up there yet, or is it still coming down, man?
No, it's not coming down, but man, it's like 19 degrees up here right now. It's
Oh,
it's
wow.
like freezing. It kind of looks like that. It looks just like our background right now because all the snow that fell is just like whipping around and blowing all over the place now. So it's kind of snowing again, but no, typical winter weather here in Titletown. Gotta love it.
We're sitting at about 36 degrees, and it's supposed to get down in the 20s again tonight. Um, just typical Tennessee. It'll be in the 60s here in a couple of days, then back down in the teens probably. That's just the way that rolls. So as we always say, go home, old man winter, you're drunk. But let's give a quick shout out to the chat here. Man, we got a lot of people in here. We got Drell Lee, we got Reb Mo, Nick McSwain in the house, Josh Martin, Doug up in here. What's up, Doug? Good morning, buddy. Let's see who else we've got, man. They're in here chatting it up. Jennifer Wright in the house. What's up, Jennifer? And Chris in. And we got Chet in here. What's up, Chet? Good morning to you, buddy. Bleeding Green in here as well. We already got us a super chat. Let's go ahead and hit that. Josh Martin, thank you for the super chat. He says, if we win Sunday night, I think we win out 11-5. Tim, I don't think that's too far-fetched, man. I mean, you get by the Chiefs. Let's do this real quick. We've got a really cool graphic. Josh Martin, thank you so much for the super chat, buddy. We appreciate it. We got a graphic that Omer shared with us on Twitter that he kind of creates. Actually, a tweet he created, and I turned it into a graphic. But I really wanted to kind of look at that remaining schedule again. I meant to update it, and it looks like I forgot to do that. So we will get to that here in a little bit. So this is the last one we had. So they're talking about we could win out, right? The Chiefs ranked 6th here. According to the 33rd team. You've got the New York Giants 32nd, the Bucks ranked 17th, the Panthers ranked 31st, then the Vikings at 9th, Bears at 23rd. Now, listen, you can't overlook any team. I think we learned that early on there against the Falcons and the Broncos, although the Broncos are starting to turn it on. It's funny how the DVOAers aren't mentioning much about it now, but that's a story for a different pod. So with that being said, your toughest opponents, obviously Kansas City and Minnesota. Now, Minnesota is a different kind of Minnesota with Josh Dobbs. Is he going to continue to play good? We're going to find out tonight as they face the Chicago Bears on Monday Night Football up there in Minnesota. I'm really excited to see how that plays out. And, of course, Justin Jefferson should be coming back fairly soon. Now, if I had to put money on it, I would say he won't be back tonight because they got a bye week coming up, and then they'll probably return after that would be my guess. But the Packers are going to kind of control their own destiny. What do you think about that comment, though, Tim, that Josh Martin just said with the super chat? Do you think they got a chance to win out if they get by Kansas City?
I do. And it's because of what my sentiment going into the Detroit game was this team needs to prove to us that they can win more than one game in a row. And we did that finally. So I believe this team is capable of going on a win streak. I will say what I said last night. I'm hoping if a loss is coming our way, I hope it comes sooner than later. And, not in crunch time, because it would really stink to go on a win streak and then, drop the wild card game or something like that. Right. Yeah. So I do believe they're capable. And that's the thing about young teams. It doesn't really matter if you're talking the major sports. Sometimes young teams, when they're well coached and they struggle early and they put it together and they get hot, they're almost just like unconscious of, what's at stake and the big stage. It's like they're immune to it almost. And, a young team can ride that excitement and that youthful exuberance and talent, and they can ride it all the way to a title. Sometimes we have seen it before. So absolutely, dude, I totally believe that this is possible. And hopefully that's the case. 11-5, nobody would have put them there in that range, right? 11-6 or, I think we said we capped out at 10 wins. I know that was kind of your high end prediction. That was my optimistic prediction was 10 or more going preseason. So, we'll take it. Bottom line is I'm actually looking forward to watching a Minnesota Chicago game. tonight because of the implications it has on our season, which is a good place to be in because, a lot of us fans, maybe we didn't think we'd be here this time of year going back early in the season. So, yeah, definitely a possibility. Hopefully it's a probability and hopefully it's a reality. Go Pack, go. I'm with it.
Yeah, definitely. Jennifer Wright said, I hate cheering for the Bears. Hey, we're all going to be Bears fans tonight. There's no doubt about that. We'll talk about why here in a second. Bleed Green says, if the Packers make the playoff, Jay Love is getting a massive extension. Can't wait for the next couple of weeks. Go, Pack, go. I think that could very well happen. Now, it'll have to wait, I believe, 12 months, so it'll probably have to come around May or June. But, yeah, if he continues to play the way he did this last game and really the 2 weeks before, Goody, the process is only going to go up on Goody, right? So you'll probably start those contract extensions, kind of get everything in place. That way when that 12-month span hits. And to the best of my knowledge, that's the rules. That's what Ian Rappaport was talking about the other day. And I think Adam Scheffner mentioned it too. They thought that was the rule. So we do have to throw those air quotes out there, right? So
when is the draft again?
The draft is in April.
Okay, so we could get an extension before the draft.
No, it has to. Well,
it has to be after that. You
could agree to an extension. I don't know if the rule is you can't sign 2 extensions within a 12-month span. I don't know if in the rules it specifically says you can't negotiate within that. That could be in the CBA. That would give people kind of an incentive to control how much they go back to the table to try to restructure. Obviously, it limits. I think the goal is to limit teams from abusing that. You know what I mean?
Right.
And just being able to go back multiple times in the year. So, yeah, with that being said, the draft will hit in April, late April. Maybe they can, quote unquote, agree to an extension. And then, once you hit that threshold of May or June, okay, bang, you got it. And you know what? Let's be honest. The fact that the draft is happening in April, if you can negotiate and get a restructure or an extension in place, this front office kind of has the advantage. You got him under contract, a fairly small contract considering it's a starting quarterback, right? So you got that small contract in place, and also you can go to him and be like, "Hey, we really want to agree to an extension before the draft. If not, then we got to make plans to draft a quarterback. Possibly we got to protect ourselves." That might kind of put the ball in the Packers' court a little bit from a negotiation standpoint. And who knows? Maybe they don't even do business like that. I just think it's definitely worth mentioning that, as Andrew Brandt says, deadline spur activity, right?
Right.
That's deadline spur action. That goes in business across the board. You find yourself in a stalemate in a business dealing or a contract you're trying to get closed, whatever it might be. I don't care what the business is. You set a deadline, things start happening. If you just leave it all wishy-washy, it just kind of hangs out there and emotions get attached and all that. It's like, hey, look, we want you here. We want this contract. We want to do this. Here's our deadline. Let's make sure we get it done by then.
Rasul Douglas trade reeks of that as well, right? We had offers. There was chatter, and then all of a sudden the deadline is looming, and all of a sudden we get an offer we can't refuse. And
don't you start this morning. What's wrong with you? Josh Martin with the super chat says, rooting for the Bears is like a wet fart on a hot summer day. It just doesn't feel right.
You think God never farted?
Hey, we appreciate that, Josh. Thank you for the super chat, my man. Nick responded with, puking emoji. All right, I like this right here. Chris in the chat said, I must admit, I think I was wrong about Love with the heart eyes emoji. Yeah, man. Again, I want to see him finish the year. That's just me personally. We've been riding this roller coaster, and it's like, 2 or 3 weeks go by, Tim, he's the guy, right? I was the one saying that going into like week 3, going, hey, man, I think we might have our quarterback. Then he hits the slump, and I'm going, let's wait till the end of the year. Now he's back on that peak again. I think it will be smart. Let's let him finish the year out. Let's see how he performs under pressure, especially with playoffs on the line, that type of thing. That's where you're going to really find out what you got.
That was what I was thinking too, like regardless of how this season ends up, regardless of the level of play and the strides that we've seen him make recently, I still think we need that full season. And what a great way for evaluation too, to be in the mix like this towards the end and to really just see not just Jordan Love, but really how this young team responds. Yeah. I mean, I look ahead to Sunday night here. We're really gonna see who this Packers team is. They come home, they take care of business against Kansas City, the entire National Football League will be put on notice about this young Packers team. The secret and the cat will be out of the bag, so to speak. And, for evaluating him, when it comes to Jordan Love, like, that's perfect. You want to see how your future franchise quarterback is going to deal with pressure, going towards the end of the season and, grinding out playoffs and things like that. That's part of evaluation too. High pressure games, big moments. You want to see how your quarterback's going to do under that pressure and that spotlight. And certainly Thanksgiving Day in Detroit was a great start for Jordan. Let's hope it continues. Got a couple more holiday games this year as well, primetime games. And, I think it's important. We got to see the whole year to really know, unequivocally what the move's going to be. Because, we know GM's one of the toughest jobs in football. And,
really is.
Anything that Goody can get to help that, decision-making process, or maybe change the draft board a little bit, whatever that may be, will help. So, the more Jordan plays, the better. And, extending our season and getting a little postseason football in your first year as a starter would be a great accomplishment. And it would be great for, the staff to do some evaluation, right?
Yeah, definitely. Bill Hubert wrote an article over at SI, and I just took a little piece of it here because you guys know we reported going into Sunday's games, the Packers had a playoff probability of like 25.7% or something like that crazy, right? So what Bill Huber wrote was Green Bay, Wisconsin. Not long ago, the question was whether the Green Bay Packers would wind up with a top 5 pick in the 2024 NFL draft. Now, following Thursday's victory at the Detroit Lions, it's whether they'll make a surprise run to a playoff spot. Before kickoff at Detroit on Thursday, the Packers were plus 265 to make the playoffs at FanDuel Sportsbook. That's an implied probability of 27.4%. On Sunday morning, that had improved to plus 118, or an implied probability of 45.9%. So, Tim, looking like 45.9% the Packers make the playoffs as things sit right now. Really
45%.
Yeah.
Hey, 45%.
We need to slow it down. No, we need to slow it down and go 45%. So when you look at the standings, we kind of hit on it last night. The Packers currently sitting at 8 seed at 5 and 6. The Rams are right behind them at 5 and 6. Saints right behind them at 5 and 6. Simply because like I said, the tiebreaker there goes to the Packers, where they beat the Saints. Now, you want the Falcons to win that South. You see they're in the 4th spot with the same record as the Saints. We're rooting for the Falcons to win the South. I may go down there and root them on in person, to be honest with you, because we have that tiebreaker over the Saints. We get the tiebreaker over the Rams. That's good news for the Packers. Now, the two teams we're kind of quote-unquote chasing are the Seattle Seahawks at 6-5 and the Minnesota Vikings at 6-5. Guys, what else could we ask for the way this season started, and kind of the valley we hit and all the players that we've lost, the youngest team in the NFL? Like, what else could you ask for this season than to be in the hunt at the end of the year? It's just absolutely exciting. Like you pointed out, Tim, going into this year, I was kind of predicting, I'm thinking 6 to 10 wins. And listen, that ain't nothing, prophetic by no stretch of the imagination. It's just simply, this is the window I see them in, right? There was times it jumped all the way to 10 or 11, pretty, you know what I mean? Pretty confidently. And then there was other times I was like, oh, man, it may be a 5-win season. We'll see how it rolls. But looking like we're going to probably fall into that range somewhere between 8 to 10 wins is, I feel comfortable saying now, with the way this team is kind of peaked. But Omer, one of our avid listeners, viewers here on YouTube, really appreciate your passion for the show and the Packers, man. He tweeted at me last night, and he had put this tweet together. Really cool. It says it's basically the teams that are in the hunt, right, for the playoff spot. It's their remaining schedule. Okay, so obviously Green Bay, we got Kansas City at home. We're at the Giants. We got Tampa Bay at home. We're at Carolina. We're at Minnesota. We got Chicago at home. That's our remaining schedule. So I really like what he did here. Omer, I want to do this, man. If you're up to it, and you seem like you are, you're always posting in the chat like crazy, man. You're always giving us, specific statistics. Why don't you take on the task for us every week, updating this for us, man? That would be absolutely awesome if you could do that, because this is really, really helpful. It's something I definitely don't have time to do. I've got all kinds of people reaching out through email, through text message, say, hey, man, how can I help with the show? How can I help with the show? I love and appreciate everybody's enthusiasm. Thank you guys so much for offering. And we'll have a couple people help with stuff like this, because it definitely makes the show better when you guys kind of take control. So, Omer, if you want to do that, awesome. If not, no big deal either. But nonetheless, Minnesota ahead of us. Their remaining schedule is Chicago at home, at Vegas, at Cincy, Detroit at home, Green Bay at home, and then at Detroit. So they got Detroit twice, Tim. Vegas is playing better right now. I know they got beat by the Chiefs, but they're playing a little bit better, it seems like. Cincy's never a pushover if Burrow may play. I don't know if he's on IR or not. I know he didn't play yesterday. I could very well see them losing 3 games there, man. I think it's going to come down to us controlling our own destiny there on the road in Minnesota, man.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the thing that, and again, yeah, shout out to Omer for the work here. This is perfect how this is laid out. I don't know if you can tell us straight on the screen, but I'd like to draw a big old circle around Seattle and their remaining schedule, because that looks like, I mean, I don't want to jinx this, man, but they got Dallas, San Francisco, and Philly, and then it's like Tennessee, Pittsburgh, Arizona. Okay. I mean, I see 3 losses for Seattle. I mean, three strong possibilities at losses, some stronger than others, but they're going to drop a few games. So we need to keep winning. Like you said, control our own destiny. The first step is getting into that wild card position. And then, yeah, like you said, putting ourselves in a position to beat Minnesota, maybe leapfrog them a little bit here. And, anything can happen, man. A lot of ball game left. So it's great to see this breakdown. Because, for a while there, like you said, it was a little doom and gloom for us here in Packerland. And, we started talking draft in, week 3 and 4, and things were getting a little hectic. Now we're talking playoffs. So, Hey, man, all you got to do is win, right? Al Davis style. Just win, baby.
Absolutely. So Omer says in the chat here, he said, Buccaneers, Giants, Bears, and Panthers a combined 12-33. Packers win all 4 games. If they win all 4 games, 91% playoff probability. So that's very, very interesting. Very interesting there for sure. Let's see here. Jake Shavink in the chat said, hard to predict the NFL, but the Hawks and Rams have uphill battles to the postseason. Just what you were saying there, Tim. And it said, Jake Shavink says, Burrow is indeed done for the year. Okay, so that changes everything in Cincy. I mean, they've been struggling with Burrow on the field. Granted, it's been a hobbled Burrow all year long, so he is done for the year. Appreciate that info there, Jake, for sure. Let's see. Bleed Green in the chat says, I say if the Packers get at least 10 wins, we make the playoffs. That's the old saying, right? Win 10 and you're in, right? But like Omer pointed out, man, 8 to 9 might get them in. You kind of see that now where you got this extended season. Sometimes that can kind of come into play as well. But what do you think? How many wins do you think it would take? Or do you look at it like that, Tim?
It's tough because of how the league is now with the extra game. And, I just think I'm around that 9 win. I mean, we've seen teams sub 500 get into the playoffs before. It's happened. And it's usually not pretty when they do. It's a pretty quick wild card weekend. But, I do think the Packers are going to need at least 9 or 10 to get in. But that all depends on, the help that we get or don't get, because, we can control our own destiny by winning ball games, but there's some other things that need to happen too for us to kind of creep up there. But I will say this. I've said it before. I'll say it again. The Green Bay Packers get in, the league's in trouble. I firmly believe that. This is not a team that by any stretch of the imagination is a huge intimidating threat to our NFC rivals. However, I don't think any of these teams want to see Green Bay in the playoffs. I think they're praying that we don't make it, because there's a lot that's known about the Packers now, stuff on film, but there's a lot that people don't know. And, the playoffs are that opportunity too, to get those first time matchups against teams that are going to have to, do a lot of unscouted looks and things of that nature, because there is no competition between the two that previously. So I do think the Packers are going to need a few more wins, obviously, to get in. No one's going to do this for us, but I believe it. Yeah. I mean, 9 wins could get us into the playoffs.
Definitely. Paul Robertson says, good morning. Currently filling up my tank with diesel. Got to have that diesel, man. Got to have it every morning.
I poured just one big old cup, man. I think this is like a 18-ounce coffee mug, man.
Got your owner's cup over there, don't you? I seen you.
Yeah, man. Got that shareholder edition here.
I found
big
this
boy. That's why I like it. It's a big boy cup right there.
And see, I like to hit the real strong coffee with a lot of cream, right? So I go with the wide cups. You know, it makes me feel fancy. You know, you get the pinky out.
You got your pinky up there?
Absolutely. You kidding me?
Is that how Larry McCarron drinks his coffee like that too, right?
He drinks his with his pinky on the floor. We know that. That thing dragging through the dining room when he getting up in the morning. No offense, Rock. We appreciate everything you did.
Oh, we love that.
Yeah.
He doesn't take offense to that. There's no way. That's a badge of honor, right?
As if he's watching this show, right?
Hey, what a great guest that would be, right? If we could get the Rock one time. Whew.
You know, we got a long way to go, obviously, but there's going to be a day where we're going to have people like that. We're going to have the Cliff Crystals. That's everything that we've done this far. I have put down on a game plan, right? And it's slowly just every piece is falling into place perfectly. And, you know, one of the things we want to take pride in is the production value. We want to make sure that we're not just on here BSing and wasting people's time. We want it to be, you know, when you guys come away, you learn something, we learn something, and we're ready for the next show to learn something else, right? But yeah, that's on the short list for sure. We got some guests that I want to have on here, no doubt. That's going to be the goal anyway. We'll see. Again, the best part, though, is just the interaction with other fans and creating this community that we all talk about. But Doug in the chat, member of the PTA Posse, appreciate you. And for those of you watching online right now, hit that like button for us. Help other Packer fans find this channel, this broadcast. Doug says, I think Burrow was a flash in the pan. You can't take 50 sacks your rookie year and not have it catch up with you. That's I think those are two different comments there, Doug. I personally don't think Burrow is a flash in the pan. I respectfully disagree. But, man, you're right. He got beat up the first year or two, right? But put it on the ticker. Doug thinks Burrow might not be the guy. We'll see, man. I'll tell you this. He looked different this year. Now, you know, the age-old question, was it the injuries or is that the new norm, right? You know, I don't know. I kind of lean toward it being the I don't know. I lean toward it being the injury because when he started to get a little bit healthy, he could move around a little bit better after that calf strain or whatever it was. He seemed like he was old Burrow there for a second, and then he got banged up again, but we'll see. All right, let's do this. Let's move on to the next topic here. Another listener had asked us about the injuries, Tim. They said, hey, what's the injuries look like for the Chiefs? All right, glad you asked. So when it comes to the Chiefs injury report, this was their injury report going into the Vegas game, okay? McCole Hardman missed because he got a thumb injury. Jerick McKinnon, you guys heard us talk about Jerick McKinnon in the receiving stats, right? I think maybe the highest passer rating when targeted, that was Jerick McKinnon, if I remember right. Okay, so he was out with a groin injury. We know how those groin injuries are. He was limited Wednesday, limited Thursday, and then did not participate Friday. He was out. Okay, so they kind of ruled him out. With it being a short week for them, guys, actually, it's not a short week. It's basically a regular week for them, isn't it? Yeah, so scratch that. So they're going from Sunday to Sunday. The groin gives me, and listen, I shouldn't say what I'm about to say, but listen, I'm just going to be real. I'm going to be honest. If I think a player is going to miss, I want them to miss because it helps the Packers. I don't want them to be hurt. I don't want their career to be hindered, but I want the best shot for the Green Bay Packers to win. I think everybody's thinking that. We just kind of bite our tongue a little bit when we're talking about it. Growing, those are nothing to mess with, right? That's what she said. The growing injury is like that. You tweak that, man, and it's something that can linger for sure. It just has to do. It affects every aspect of your game, your cutting ability, your overall speed, even taking hits, all that. So with the fact that McCole Hardman and Jerick McKinnon were out for Sunday, if there's a chance they miss too, then that would definitely help the Packers there, Tim. There's no doubt about that. Now, we found an article. This was by Matt Connor, okay, and it says Chiefs News, 3 players suffer minor injuries against the Raiders. I'm going to rattle it off real quick because I think this is important. They said following the game, Reed said that Moore tweaked his left knee. So Sky Moore tweaked his left knee a little bit, and that Donovan Smith came out for a, quote, stinger. He added Trey Smith hurt his right foot at the end there. Overall, Reed's assessment was that the Chiefs had a couple of injuries but nothing too serious. And he goes on to say Andy Reid ended his press conference by saying that he expects everyone to be ultimately okay. Now, we know that's a bit of coach speak. I don't think he's guaranteeing those guys are going to be healthy for the next game. I think it's just kind of a blanket statement. But he goes on in the article to say these injuries compounded the health concerns that the Chiefs were already dealing with coming into Week 12. Yeah, cry me a river. Before the game, the Chiefs added wide receiver Kadarius Toney to the injury report over the weekend with ankle and hip concerns and declared him out against the Raiders. They did the same with running back Jerick McKinnon due to a groin injury. The Chiefs also recently placed wide receiver McCole Hardman on injured reserve earlier this week. That's some information we didn't have, right? So that's good to know. It will be interesting to see how the Chiefs manage the injuries on offense if Moore is unable to go for another week and McKinnon and Toney remain out as well. While some of the players hold minor roles, depth is still a concern going forward. The Chiefs stay on the road with a trip to Green Bay, Wisconsin in Week 13 to face the Packers at Lambeau. I love that people just say at Lambeau rather than at Lambeau Field. It's just awesome. I love it. Given how tough the Packers have been playing lately and how tough an environment playing in Green Bay can be, the Chiefs will need all the help they can get. So I thought that was a cool little injury report update there, Tim. Again, you don't want to see anybody hurt, but there's no denying that's about as good a news as you could have, other than maybe Pat Mahomes catching the flu last second and missing, right?
You're not lying too about the groin injuries. I mean, back in my athletic days, 100 years ago when I was an athlete, I've had pulled groin muscles, and yeah, you're right. And we talked about Quay Walker a little bit, right? How Quay's back, but doesn't quite look like himself. Well, yeah, he's dealing with a groin injury. And let's be honest, you can't tell me that he's not back out there probably a week or two earlier than expected to help this team, So he's fighting through that. And those are those things. That's the type of injury too, where even when you recover from it, it's still kind of there. It doesn't really just go away. You're still kind of dealing with that issue. And some guys can be prone to that the rest of their career after they have that. We've seen that with Ja. Ja's had that issue off and on throughout the years as well. And that dude's a yoga master. So it's like, it doesn't matter what you do. Sometimes they happen and they can affect your game. And again, we don't wish injury on anyone, but yeah, the less weapons the Chiefs have, the better. Because sometimes they got one of those rosters too. It's almost like San Francisco. I look at their depth chart and I'm just like, how this looks like an 8-year-old cheating on Madden, building a roster with the salary cap turned off or something. It's just like, how do they do this? How do they create this depth? And they're, teams need it when it gets to this point of the year, crunch time in the season. But yeah, the more banged up Kansas City is coming up to Lambeau, Curly's crib, the better off we are. But hey, let's be honest. When the Chiefs are on, they're a dynamic offense, regardless of personnel. They've had their ups and downs too offensively this year, drop issues, things like that. So hopefully it is a cold and rainy and wet and wild one up there in at Lambeau. But yeah, man, injuries go both ways. We're banged up too. It's going to be a great game either way about it. I think I don't anticipate a blowout either way. I think we're going to have us a nail biter on Sunday Night Football.
Yeah, definitely, man. I think it's going to be great. The whole country watching, right? Really, the whole world watching Sunday Night Football, Lambeau. I think the weather, I was just looking it up. Let me see if I can find it here. Sunday night, it's a low of 30, and they're saying periods of rain and snow, low near 30, winds light and variable. Chance of precipitation is 50%, like 5-mile-an-hour wind. The wind shouldn't be a factor. Of course, we know that can change in a heartbeat up there on the bay. Tim, you know that better than anyone. But wouldn't it be cool for the temperature to drop a little bit further, right? Think about that groin injury. If that some of those guys do play banged up, that thing's going to get tight, man. And you get a little bit of snow falling at Lambeau Field under the lights. It doesn't get any better than that. Chris in the chat says, when are we going to get an Omer live watch party? What we need is to put a camera. We got a little bit of footage of Omer, actually.
No!
That's him saying in French, fire everybody, right?
Fire them all.
What we need is a day in the life of Omer, and I just want to put one of those GoPro cameras right on his hat where we can see everything he sees for the day. And I think that would be absolutely awesome. Omer is the man. There's no doubt about that. Let's see here. Bleed Green says Kraft breakout game. Hey, obviously Musgrave, he's on IR, right, Tim? So
Yep.
we're going to be missing him for at least 3 more weeks, if I understand the rules correctly. So Tucker Kraft looked a lot more comfortable this game. Granted, PFF said he graded out pretty bad. I personally didn't see it so much on tape, but I wasn't really looking for Kraft. The Tutter, let's all be honest, it was a gimme, right? It was a layup. So it's hard to kind of judge that. But there was a couple of times in pass blocking scenarios where I thought, hey, he held his own right there, right? Now they grade the top of the tape a lot more strenuously than I do, right? They're a lot more critical than I am. Because I'm kind of looking for what made the play go as opposed to who screwed up on each individual play. That's why I like PFF and being able to use that kind of as a base to go to and say, okay, here's how people generally played. Now let's go listen to Mike Wall. Let's go listen to JT O'Sullivan, Kurt Benkert, other people kind of break the tape down. But yeah, so I could see that, man. I'll tell you this, Tucker Kraft, you could tell he loves being a part of this team. You could tell his teammates love him. And there's nothing he'd want more than on Sunday Night Football to get in the crowd with a Lambeau leap, right, Tim?
Oh, absolutely. I would love to see him have a great breakout game. And, it reminds me of, I can't remember where I saw this. So, don't quote me on this, but there was something I saw after the Detroit game, and they were talking about Dan Campbell, what he does with some of the rookies in Detroit is he rewards them with targets in the offense based on what they're doing with the little things, like in special teams, hitting your blocks, that kind of thing. So they go to the film room and then they'll see you doing those things. And then the next game, you're going to get rewarded with targets in the offense. It's like, that's not a bad, we might have to steal that, right? That's not a bad approach dealing with young players because, look at Tucker Kraft. He had issues with this during camp, coming around and hitting his blocks and these sort of things. And he's really cleaned it up. And I think Musgrave going down really, it kind of lights a fire under you, right? You see a teammate go down and, at your position in your tight end room there. And it's an opportunity for you to step up. And you can tell Tucker's put an emphasis on doing those small things that need to be done at the tight end position. And we're seeing more targets in the offense. So I don't know if Coach LaFleur's got the same mentality. Maybe there's our own version of that reward system, for targets in the offense, whether it's in the passing game or the run game. But yeah, man, Tucker Kraft is really fun to watch. He's kind of been overshadowed by Musgrave a little bit. And now he's getting a chance to kind of fill a role in this offense and step out on his own. And it'll be great to see that on Sunday night. I hope the Kraft family is out there deep too. He's got a big family. There's a couple pictures on social media. He's got a lot of support from his family, which is always great to see. And they kind of come and take over Lambeau, and it'll just be great to see on Sunday.
Yeah, for sure. Paul Robertson here in the chat says PTA Posse coffee mugs would be awesome with a little diesel symbol on the side, right? Or maybe
regular or unleaded.
You could do like a diesel tank gauge, right? Where you could see, quarter tank, half tank, 3/4 full type thing, right?
There you go.
That's definitely on the short list. The goal, I'm in the works with it right now. We're going to try to have hats, T-shirts, hoodies, and definitely coffee mugs. Got to have coffee mugs. So
awesome.
We're working on that stuff now. I know YouTube has the option to have a store. I also want to make sure it's good quality, though. I don't mean to be bougie, but there's nothing worse than spending money on merch and it being crappy quality, products. So
yeah, especially if you're paying $40 for a T-shirt, right?
Right, and it's more or less a donation than something you want. I would want to create something that you guys would want to wear, and it look good, be comfortable, all those things. So we're going to get on that. I promise. We got a lot of things in the work. That's on that short list that we talked about here earlier in the show that I've been working on, trying to get things kind of organized. Jeffrey in the chat said, this season looks like a success already. I can't help but think about 5 picks in the top 100 for this team next year. We can upgrade at 3 or 4 spots. Oh man, am I excited. One thing you can say about Goody, he's got draft picks set in place for the future, Tim. And, sometimes we point out, I shouldn't say sometimes, we always point out the missed picks more than the picks you hit on. And I've heard some people throw different numbers. I've heard some people say that the GM success rate on quote unquote hitting draft picks is like 25%. I've heard others say it's closer to 40%. I don't know what the actual number is. But with that being said, the only way you can fix that, whether you're good, bad, or indifferent, is take multiple swings, right? Take multiple swings. That's why I've always been a fan of trading back, and just taking multiple swings because the contract hits get cheaper. However, when you find yourself in a position that you might be a bottom 5 team like we kind of felt like we were at the first of the year, you've got to be aggressive and get those key pieces put in place. Now, Kenny Clark's starting to play his best football. Let's hope that continues. Obviously, Josh Myers, if he can stabilize the center position, I think that'll be huge as well. The tackling on defense has got to continue to improve, that type of thing. But what do you think about the draft coming up as far as all the picks we've allocated? It's pretty exciting stuff when you got an opportunity to hit on 4 or 5 potential starters, right?
Absolutely. I think Jeffrey's spot on here with this comment. We can upgrade 3 or 4 spots. I see that. And we've already talked a little bit about what those 3 or 4 spots might be. And where we're going to draft. And I'm with you, trading down or trading back. We get steals in the draft sometimes too. And, it's true. We focus on the ones that Goody misses more than the ones that he hits on. And I think this year's, the 2023 rookies, so far so good, right? I mean, I guess our biggest concern is probably Anders Carlson at this point, as far as the rookies go. So, a lot to be excited about going forward.
Yeah, and really it's the expectation going into the season, thinking, okay, this is going to be a really down year. Again, man, 6 to 10 is a broad prediction, a broad, kind of statement, but or not even really a statement when you think about it. But the thought of us competing for the playoffs, I can't say it enough, man. What else could you ask for as a Packer fan? Especially with having the youngest team in the league, that wide receiver room. If Jaden Reed, Dontavian Wicks, and Luke Musgrave continue to improve, right, from a young target standpoint, and again, Christian Watson peaked, right, seemed to hit his stride on Sunday. We know Romeo Doubs, one of the best 50-50 ball receivers that we've had in Green Bay in a little while, man. He that's definitely his strength, is that 50-50 back shoulder throw in the red zone is absolutely dangerous. You want to set a formation, get yourself in position to where you got that guy one-on-one on the outside with a less than stellar corner, and it's game on. They got to choose: are we putting our best corner on him or Christian Watson, who's 6'4", right? On top of that, you got Jaden Reed working the middle, softening up the slot. You've seen that touchdown catch on Sunday. I still think that Watson ran the right route, man. Just based off of what I've seen, that plays in their playbook. We've seen it before where they're kind of running the tosser with a quick little out, a quick little flat almost. You're trying to just get one quick side adjustment for the quarterback. But again, when I hear other former football players say, no, there's no way that was the right route, I gotta bow to that. You know what I mean? But nonetheless, I think that they're in a position with these young targets or young pass catchers, man, where the cap hit is so small, man. Like, we got one of the cheapest wide receiver rooms. Somebody pointed out, I think our cap hit in our receiver room as a whole was like $6.5 million this year, Tim. And
Thank God, we're going to need it. We got a David Bakhtiari contract to deal with.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
We're going to need it.
Allen Lazard's is, I think, over $11 million this year. So one receiver who was a healthy and active scratch on Sunday for the Jets, one receiver is getting paid more as far as cap hit allocation than our entire receiver room. That's just absolutely wild. Paul Robertson here in the chat says A.J. Dillon gets an extra 10 yards every time the temperature drops. That's a fact, man. And we got to put we got to start putting some spec on A.J. Dillon's name, because he's starting to turn it up, man. He's had a rough start. We all know this offensive line has struggled, run blocking this year. Pass blocking, they've been one of the best offensive lines in football. But run blocking, it's been absolute hot garbage. The fact that he's starting to turn it on now, no better time to do it with a big bruiser back than when it turns cold, Tim. I mean, you start feeling those pads a little bit more when the weather turns cold, man.
Absolutely. And he's so fun to watch when he gets going like that. I've always said him and Jonesy, thunder and lightning. Sometimes you need some of that thunder snow that we have with AJ as the season grinds on. But, backs like that are great to have. The quick twitch, athletic, threat in the passing and run game. Running backs are phenomenal, but we've got a big back that's a threat in the pass game as well as the run game. And I love AJ when he gets them pads down and just finishes those runs. He's great for that extra push, man. Quadzilla is no joke. He can get stood up and get you an extra 3-4 yards there as moving the pile. You ever see it? You'll see a lot of times AJ will be stopped at the line sometimes, and he doesn't even need the tush push or a little help. He just keeps those legs going and falls forward and gets another, chunk of yards, which is great, because that's what this time of year is all about, especially outdoor games, right? At Lambeau Field. And, you need that grind. You need that grinder on your team that's going to just get it done down and dirty in the trenches and protect the football. I remember AJ early in his career had fumble issues, and that's something that's been corrected. And I trust him with the ball in his hands, and you need that in your backfield for sure.
Yep, no doubt about it, man. And again, he's turning it up at the right time. It's exciting to see him kind of hit his peak here for this season anyway at the right time. Number one Packer fan says, to be fair, that touchdown does not work if Kraft doesn't handle that block so well. Completely agree with that. I mean, he played it as good as he could. There's no doubt. And then I think it was Jeffrey in here also said Kraft really fooled that guy, wasn't it, Hutchinson? So just so everybody understands too on that specific play, it's not Hutchinson's job to cover Kraft, okay? Kraft is simply, Hutchinson's rushing the quarterback. Kraft's job is to sell the fact that he's blocking him so the backer behind him will go ahead and find work. And that's exactly what happened. He held on long enough. The thing I liked about it, luckily he didn't get called for a hold, because typically you don't get called for a hold on this. Lock up inside the pad, inside the framework, and then jerk that jersey down, and you can see Hutch kind of get pulled down. And we know Tucker Kraft's a grown boy. Like that guy is, I mean, he's got all the measurables. There's no doubt about it. That's the reason they drafted him. He's got this extremely high upside. He's just got he's very, very raw, hasn't played football at a very high level for a long time. So, all in all, he did everything he was supposed to do. But I do want to mention that it wasn't Hutchinson's job to cover him. And it wasn't that he fooled Hutchinson. It wasn't a screen where you had blockers out in front. It was real simple. A chip, what we call a leak. You'll hear me on Chalk Talk say, why leak? Or you leak, right? What that means in a leak is you're going to block and then release. It's a delayed release route where you're doing two things. You're slowing down the edge defender or whoever it is you're blocking. Sometimes you can run kind of a little leak from the inside out with the tailback, with the T. You're doing two things. You're helping slow that defender down, getting to the quarterback, but you're also convincing, you're selling, you're sugaring the backers or the safety that's in the box, the robber safety, that, okay, he's blocking, let me go find work. And then all of a sudden, bang, you're out. You got 5 to 7 yard separation. Beautiful play call by LaFleur. There's no doubt about that, man.
I'm really excited about our tight end room in the future too. Like, Tucker Kraft and Luke Musgrave. I mean, when's the last time you've seen, we hear about like wide receiver tandems. We just talked about tandem running backs, right? But what about having two monster young tight ends on your payroll playing well? I mean, have we seen that before? Like most teams, you have this standout tight end and you got a role player behind him. I mean, I think there's a potential here. We really could have a two-headed monster in Luke Musgrave and Tucker Kraft. It's exciting.
Yeah, and the league is very cyclical. You've seen this. You guys remember back in the day when the Patriots were winning Super Bowls, or I say back in the day like it was decades ago. But one of the things that they had going for them, and I'm going to mention his name, listen, whether you think it was CTE that forced him to do it or whatever, some people say that tied in, because he, obviously was convicted of murdering someone. But when you had Gronk already on the roster, I think they drafted him about the same time, Gronk and Aaron Hernandez, right?
Yep. Yep.
That's a good example of 12 personnel, right? They use 12 and then they could spread it out. And what's crazy is they could even go empty early on. And what I mean by that, they could go 0-2 personnel. People are going, what have you been smoking, Clayton? That's right, 0-2. They would have 0 running backs on the field. And they would go 3 wide receivers, 2 tight ends. So immediately the defense, as that personnel is called into the headset and they're sending their defensive personnel on the field to match that 0-2 early on in that process when they would go 0-2. And I followed this real close because I love looking at the personnel cycles across the NFL. The defensive coordinator was like, well, hell, they're not going to run the ball. Let's go dime. So they would send dime out there. In some cases, they would send quarter out there. Not quarters coverage. Quarter is, 7 DBs, right? Dime is 6. 5 is, 5 is nickel. 6 is dime. 7 is quarter. In some cases, it's 1 down lineman, 2 edge defenders. You just got a 3-man rush. They would send that out there, and they would put Aaron Hernandez in the running back spot. They would flex it out wide, get them thinking all their whole defense set. Last second shift, Aaron Hernandez would come in the backfield. They'd hand the ball to him because a lot of people don't know that, but he kind of played H at Florida when Tebow was there. So he's someone who could run the football. That was the last time I seen 12 really excel. Now, Bill Belichick has tried to rekindle that over the last few years. Went out and spent a bunch of money on – he's still doing it, actually. Spent a bunch of money on Hunter Henry in free agency, right? And he brung in Jonnu Smith. Now, Jonnu Smith ended up being booty cheeks, so they just cut him or traded him or whatever, and they just ate the cap hit because like 2 years into that process, that experiment, it just didn't work out. But then they went out and got Gesicki, so now they got Hunter Henry and Gesicki, so they're still trying the 12 personnel thing. But again, they got one of the worst offenses in the league, Tim. The league is cyclical. It worked years ago. People are trying to bring it back. We pointed out personnel-wise right here on the show the Packers' success out of 11 compared to 12. 11 personnel is working more than 12 personnel right now. And I get it. It comes down to the best players on the field. That makes the biggest difference. You know, when the game's on the line, think player, not play. But these are just kind of thinking out loud, the cyclical nature. But, yeah, that's the last one that comes to mind for me where they had a lot of success was that 12 personnel that New England ran with Hernandez and Gronk for sure. So, let's see, Omer here in the chat. I hate to go on those little side tangents, but man, it just I love the personnel aspect of football, dude. I nerd out over that stuff big time. Omer says key to beating Mahomes is time of possession and pressure. Keep them off the field, shut their weak run game down, put it on Mahomes, and keep the heat on. He'll throw INTs. You do love no INTs. Yeah, it's going to come down to turnover differential. There's no doubt about that. He'll give you a couple shots a game, especially if you got these balls bouncing off receivers' hands. I know they've had drop issues as well. Been a big argument on Twitter about that. There's no doubt. And no, we've got more drops than you. It's a hell of a thing to argue about between two fan bases. Packers fan bases and Chiefs fan bases trying to convince the other they have more drop issues. But Doug in the chat said, I agree with Jeffrey. The season is just fun, playoffs exciting, but not disaster if they don't quite get there. It's what we talked about in the preseason, playing with the house's money for sure. Omer says making the playoffs is important. It's a stepping stone for them to gain experience and mature. Most teams don't go from the bottom to the Super Bowl in a year. It's progressive steps. I remember one that did, though. I remember one back in 2010. Nobody expected it. Number one Packer fan, I need AJ to go prime Eddie Lacy. LOL, bumping off of people, running through helmets, stiff arms. Give me all that. Give me that spin move too, Tim. Was Eddie Lacy not a blast, dude? One of my favorite Packers, bro.
Oh, my gosh, dude. I mean, like, I want to call him a power back, but then you look at some of Eddie Lacy's tape, and you're like, man, dude had wheels for his size.
Yeah.
And he had a little juke game, too. He could shake you, too. It's not just running over guys, but, of course, the bulk of it was, lowering the boom and just refusing to be tackled, basically. You know, it's almost like a guy that was just allergic to being tackled. And then, what that can do to an opposing defense is priceless, right? You got a running back like that can just be a workhorse. And, it takes 3, 4, 5 defenders to bring him down. You got guys running all over the field chasing this dude. And then by the time they make a tackle, I mean, they're exhausted. You talk about personnel. You got to sub more. A back like that can really change the flow of a game. It can change how you're calling a game defensively. So, yeah, I'm with it all day, man. Let's go A.J. Dillon. Let's bring the thunder, man, for sure.
Look at this. We got Josh Martin with the super chat breaking the news. I just seen it come across the ticker over here on Good Morning Football, too. Panthers have fired Frank Reich. When do we play them? We play them, what is it, 3 weeks from now? Yeah, I think 2 or 3 weeks from now. We play them, Josh. So, yeah, they've been booty cheeks. Now, I will say this. More times than not, when they fire a head coach in season, you've seen it with the Raiders earlier. You've seen it with the Raiders a couple of years ago. It's funny. We keep talking about the Raiders firing coaches. It kind of creates a spark sometimes, right? So you listen, any given Sunday, I don't care that the Panthers are the worst team in the league. Any given Sunday, the worst team in the league can beat the best. You got to go out there and prepare. You got to be completely locked in on, okay, how do we beat them? First of all, what do they do? Why do they do it? How do we beat them? And how do we put ourselves in the best position to execute the game plan that we put together to beat them? And also, don't be so egotistical that if that game plan flops because they do a 180 and do something totally opposite from what you expect, to be able to abandon the game plan and be able to get into what you know is going to work. We used to talk about it all the time, and I can't even remember the exact terminology Michael Lombardi used, but the first quarter, you're trying the openers, you're trying to fill out, okay, what's the defense doing, what's their offense doing. The second quarter and third quarter is about adjusting to what they're doing. And the fourth quarter is just a standalone game, right? You treat it like this is a brand new football game going into the fourth quarter. But what do you think about that, man? Them firing Frank Reich here with however many years or however many weeks left. What is it, 5-6 weeks we got left here?
I mean, that's a telltale sign that things are bad, right? You don't make a move like that usually in this league unless you absolutely have to. We dealt with that with Mike McCarthy. I still wasn't a fan of. I thought maybe he could have finished that year out, just out of respect kind of thing. But, sometimes you have to make that move. If a coach loses the locker room or, you have to. So I understand. I don't think Frank Reich's a terrible coach, but, hey, man, where was he before Indianapolis and then to Carolina? I mean, how many chances do you get in this league, as a head coach? I mean, look at Josh McDaniels, right? Josh Daniels in Vegas, same thing that, he basically repeated what he did in Denver when he had a crack at Denver, made a couple of interesting maneuvers and attached himself to the wrong quarterback. And he did it again in Vegas. And now he's, looking for a job. So, yeah, man, it's always tough. You never want to see someone lose their job, but hey, at the end of the day, man, it's a business at this level, right? And and hey, that's true. What you said is true. Carolina could, be dangerous now. Not that they're playing for anything, but a lot, right. Pride is one thing that you play for. You've been getting your butt whooped all year, going out and beating a team like the Packers, who are, on the ascent, is something that guys will play for. That'll tune you up and get you ready to play. But yeah, man, we cannot take these games for granted. Like we said last night, right? Those should be wins when we look at that chunk of the Giants, the Bucks, and the Panthers. But hey, like you said, any given Sunday, man, that's the respect we talk about in this league. You have to have it's like art of war, right? You got to respect your opponent. You don't want to fear them, but you have to have that respect. So, and Carolina, they got a young quarterback, right? Who can be electric when he wants to be, and has some years to develop here. But I don't think we can write any of these off as automatic wins. We got to be on our A game all the way through.
Yeah, and when you're talking about Frank Reich being in Indy and then going to Carolina, he was the OC for the Philadelphia Eagles, right? Doug Peterson was head coach. They won a Super Bowl. They were RPO central. If you guys don't know, the RPO got so popular in the NFL here recently because of Doug Peterson. Doug Peterson was Brett Favre's backup in Green Bay. Doug Peterson said they were running RPOs all the way back when Brett was quarterbacking. You guys remember how Brett would hand the ball off and he would do that full fake to the slant, right? Like pretend like he's going to throw the slant, hand the ball off, or hand the ball off and pretend like he still had the ball, throw the slant. They said in practice one day, this was Doug Peterson talking, Favre looked up and said, when we hand that ball off, that slant's open. Do you want me to take a quick look? And if it's open, just hammer that slant. And that's where the Packer slants was a big term.
You're telling me Brett Favre invented the RPO?
I'm not saying he invented it, but he had a lot to do with it. Doug Peterson mentioned that. So Doug Peterson rekindles that RPO in Philly. They go and win a Super Bowl, right? Well, he has a falling out with the front office. Obviously, he gets fired. But Frank Reich gets a job in Indy as the head coach. The RPO absolutely flopped in Indy. The same year that the RPO flopped in Indy, guess where else it flopped? Green Bay, Wisconsin.
Yeah.
So last year, when I was saying this is LaFleur's offense, this is more LaFleur's offense than it's ever been, they were leaning on RPO and a lot of motion. People refuse to believe me, but they ran more motion last year than they did the year before when Aaron won the MVP. It's where we all got to learn and lower the ego and acknowledge the fact that we got to go to the tape. What's actually happening on the field? What happened? Why did it happen? What I noticed was the league caught on to the RPO. I go across the league and go, okay, what teams within the Shanahan coaching tree is having success? they're not leaning on the RPO as much, and they're having success. Seattle was spreading things out with 11 and 12 personnel, and they were having success with Geno Smith last year. Why is that? Because they expected their offensive coordinator, who came from the Rams, to continue doing what the Rams were doing, and he adjusted, right? So RPO failed in Indy. Frank Reich loses his job, takes a year off, goes to Carolina, tries to do the RPO again. They get their butts handed to him. He's out of a job again. The RPO right now is very, very limited, very limited. Now, what is Green Bay doing to make the RPO work? Remember that read option on Sunday? Remember the read option? I think it was week 1 or week 2 where he kept it and faked the guy out of his jock strap and went in the end zone for a touchdown. They're running more of an RPR, and that makes the RPO open up a little bit more, but they're not running the RPO near as much as they did with Aaron Rodgers. So they've adjusted now. The offense has. They've simplified things. Less sifts, less pulling offensive linemen, I should say. Now they're starting to get back to a little bit of that sifting, a little bit of that pulling, because it's kind of charged back up. Defenses haven't been looking at. So, when it comes to Frank Reich, though, I think he's ego gets in the way, man. No, we can make this work. We can make this work. I think Bryce Young's going to be a great quarterback. That's just me personally. But I think that's another thing that Jeff Teffer is doing down there, the owner for the Carolina Panthers, is he's looking up, and he's a very smart businessman. I guarantee you he's got a council he goes to every single week, and they're probably looking up going, look, this is not working. It's not going to work. We're going to ruin this quarterback if we continue down this path. So you change things up with Frank Reich, obviously losing that job. Like you said, you don't want to see anybody lose their job, Tim, but Frank Reich's okay. He's doing all right. He's made plenty of money. There's no doubt about that. But Josh Martin, thank you for the super chat. Thank you for the update. Go ahead, Tim.
I was going to say he'll probably end up somewhere, right? Coordinator, advisor, consultant, assistant, whatever. I mean, it's not over for him at all.
Yeah, no doubt about it, man. Derek K in the chat said 2 possible all-pro level tight ends. It's been a long time since we had two pass catchers. Yeah, we got to listen. I'm not telling anybody how to fan. Me personally, I'm trying to curb the enthusiasm because I look at Tucker. He doesn't look like he's ready to play at the NFL level. I want him to because I love his energy. I love his attitude. Him and Bach chugging beers together. Him doing Lambeau leap, them spilling beer all over him. He just seems like one of those tight ends you want, almost like a Gronk type.
I was just going to say, that type of personality.
Here, we got to check it, Tim. We're not saying he's going to be Gronk. I'm just saying personality, right, Tim?
Yeah, there's things that remind you of that. George Kittle's one of those guys, too, in San Francisco, kind of falls into that category. That everybody wants a tight end like that on your team. You have to. You almost have to have that guy, right? Yep. Get a little bit of fire. Keep it light when you need to keep it light. But, hey, work hard, play hard, right? And Tucker Kraft fits that bill for sure. But like you said, he's raw. I think Musgrave's a little more refined than Tucker Kraft, but they're both young tight ends, and he's going to continue to develop, and it's going to be fun to watch him grow, and really cool to see him get these snaps. He's getting more snaps and more involved in the offense.
Yeah, and then on the other side with Luke Musgrave, like Bleed Green says, Luke Musgrave is a dog for playing through that injury. Didn't say anything about it till after the game. Had a lacerated kidney. Is that what it was? And this dude, and you can see we showed the play where he got hurt. He goes to the sideline, points to the side, hunkers over. It looked like they said, "Do you want to go to the tent?" is what I think they said. And he went,
"Nope."
And goes back out there and do.
And he's probably thinking, "Hey, I knocked the wind out of myself," right? Yeah. He's probably thinking, "Let me catch my breath." And then he's probably slowly realizing that it ain't that. Wait a minute, something else is going on. But yeah, man. A throwback to a bygone era in the NFL, right? Good old-fashioned hard nose. Leave me alone. I'm going to suck it up and play through the rest of this game. Extend them now if you could. I don't care. Give them the contract. I want guys like that in my locker room. Period. You got to be willing to put it out there, especially at the tight end position, right? That's you got to be a tough SOB to play that position,
really man. Nick McSwain in the chat says he's a member of the PTA posse. He said Chiefs defense is good. Nick, he also said, I'm more concerned about the Chiefs defense than their offense. Completely agree. They got a top 3, top 5 defense right now. Chris Jones in the middle, absolutely awesome. They can create turnovers too. I think it's going to come down to turnover differential, controlling the clock, protecting the ball. One thing about the way Mahomes plays, he stops the clock a lot, right? So that's something that if you can kind of just take what the defense gives you on offense, right? And I'm going to watch a little bit of their tape today to get a little bit better understanding. Tonight, we're going to do a PFF preview and show how the individual matchups kind of go with that game. But yeah, I'm completely on board with you, Nick. Their defense is solid, man, no doubt about it. Doug in the chat says, by the way, Jim Carter, Packers linebacker from the 1970s, passed away. I remember Carter and Fred Carr were the anchors of that linebacking core. That's the thing that always gets kind of lost in the shuffle, Tim. In the 70s and 80s, some really bad football teams, but there were some great players on those teams too, man. That kind of get overlooked. We talk about Lynn Dickey a lot in the 80s. There's several players in the 70s there that were solid players. So hate to hear that about Jim Carter. Obviously, thoughts and prayers go out to his family. That's right. I said prayers. If it makes you mad, find something else to watch. We all have the right to believe the way we want to believe.
Amen.
Sucks to see someone pass like that, man. And I talk about it all the time. Man, it's like the older I get, you're seeing these John Maddens, Pat Summeralls, these legends of the game. Heck, even some of the younger guys, Junior Seau with CTE, some of the greats that you grew up watching play football, you see them passing away, and it's like, man, it sucks getting old, dude. It sucks. And it's you got to slow down and appreciate. We were talking about Chris Collinsworth off the air, right? I personally like Chris Collinsworth. I love that he kind of took over PFF. I love hearing him call a game. Everybody's got their own quirks, their own style. I'm not going to make the same mistake I made with John Madden, because when John Madden was calling games, there was times I'd be like, here he is drawing on the screen again, just acting goofy. And the second he was gone, I was like, damn, I miss John Madden, man.
Yep.
Let's appreciate what we got while we've got it is all I'm saying. But like I said, sucks for the Carter family there, and prayers go out to that crew, that clan for sure, man. Let's see what else we got here. Perfect Dark says, got to trust in Joey B and stop criticizing him. Hey, if there's something to criticize him, right? Perfect Dark. But when you got a top 10 defense and now you play two stellar offenses, let's put some spec on that name, right? I completely agree with you. Chris in the chat says, Clayton, do you see Matt LaFleur getting away from all the wide receiver lead blocking? Seems to be something that just doesn't work. I don't see the problem personally, Chris. I don't see the problem from the receivers not blocking. I see the problem with the condensed sets. We hardly ever run out of spread sets. And I think that's where the key to unlocking the running game is. I could be wrong. I'm not trying to say I'm the grand poobah of football X's and O's here. But when I look at the tape, when you got the condensed sets, the defense can really kind of tighten up on you. If you were to spread things out and give a little 11 trips or 11 tray, right? And then run weak side because you put on tape the last 3 weeks, really, Jordan Love can wing the ball, right? His accuracy's starting to get a little bit better. Pre-snap, post-snap decision-making is getting better. He's playing on time. Now that you got that on tape, if you come out in those same 11 looks, you run a couple of draws, I think that's going to open things up in the running game. But I personally think it's the condensed sets. Now, when you're seeing wide receivers, quote unquote, not successfully blocking, not that they're not trying. Most of the time, the reason you go to those condensed sets, what we talk about, the nasty splits where the receivers are all lined up inside the numbers, they're looking to crack on defensive ends. You're trying to get creative with your blocking scheme, not just defensive ends, but cracking down on backers as well. I think all that's on tape, and we talk about the league being cyclical, right? And right now, I think 11 personnel is the way to go for the most part. Not that you shouldn't go to 12 occasionally, but we were forced to go 11 last game. And again, I don't think we had 112 personnel play on Chalk Talk, Tim. No. The reason being is because we were so banged up at the tight end position. Tucker Kraft was really the only go-to guy. You had Ben Sims in there occasionally, but for the most part, the explosive plays came from 11 personnel. Sometimes you go through a season and, out of the negative things that happen in the season, whether it be injuries or negative plays, it forces you into something you otherwise wouldn't have done. And you go, hark, this works. Yep. I hope that continues with 11 personnel, at least till teams start to key in on it. Then you can go back to condensed sets a little bit more. But what do you think? Do you think the wide receiver lead blocking is an issue, Tim?
I don't think it's an issue. I think, first of all, these are young wide receivers. And we got a couple of them. Malik Heath's a dog out there in the blocking game. But yeah, I mean, I don't think you get away from it. I think you refine it. I think these guys are going to get better at it. And let's be honest, a wide receiver blocking a defensive end is a crapshoot anyway. I mean, if you can get out there and get in the way and just not hold the guy and draw a flag, you've done a good job, in my opinion. I mean, it's like me playing one-on-one against Shaq. It's just not going to go well. But we want our pass catchers to be more than pass catchers, because that's how you develop versatility in your offense. A receiver that can block as well as catch the football, run good routes is clutch. But I'm with you, Clayton. I don't see us getting away from it. I see us utilizing it better, and changing our approach to the game, and we'll see some improvement to that. But I agree too. Being 11 personnel heavy is the key for us right now, at least until we get our big boys back out there, or somebody else steps up. You never know. Sims could step up here too and become a legit force for us in this offense as we grind out the year.
Yeah, definitely. Jarrell Lee in the chat says, "At everyone, I love being part of this family. Heading to orientation for a second job. So boring. See you guys tonight." Hey, man, absolutely crushed that orientation, Jarrell. And we appreciate you hanging out in here with us, man. I'm glad to have you a part of the group, and just understand that this group is much better with you being a part of it. So really appreciate you, and go knock it out of the park, man. I don't care what you do for a living. Be the best at it, man. You can. I don't say this making fun of anybody either. If you're happy working fast food for minimum wage, who the hell is anyone else to tell you shouldn't do that or you shouldn't be happy doing it? But be the best at it, dude. Be the
your happiness is exactly that, yours, right?
Absolutely. Cal in the chat says, 1982, Chris Collinsworth sat next to me at lunch when I was in the Army at Wiesbaden Army base. He was so cool and spent 30 minutes talking to me about football. LOL. He is awesome. That's an awesome story, man. That's an awesome story. He seems like a great guy to me. And we were talking, like I said, off the air. I think his son Jack does an excellent job with NBC. Some of the coverage they've done over the years with Notre Dame, me being a Notre Dame fan, I just love the people that they've picked to kind of handle that stuff. So with that being said, let's get out of here, Tim. We're a little bit over. It's a great conversation in the chat. You guys were awesome. You got any parting thoughts, Tim?
Yeah, real quick, defensively going into this Kansas City game. I'm of the theory that we have to apply pressure to Mahomes, but I want to try and keep him in the pocket, man. I feel like if we can keep him, in that he's got the mobility, right? But if we let him get out, or we're pinning our ears back and we're going downhill trying to blitz him, I think we're gonna pay for that dearly in this game. So we've got to find a way to apply pressure without getting ahead of ourselves. And I know that's easier said than done with Pat Mahomes, but I really do. I think keeping him inside as best we can, keep him in between those tackles at least, and kind of limit his mobility in the passing game, we're going to have a chance. Because if he gets himself out in space, that underneath is going to be open. He's going to hit guys in stride. That's his game all day. And I don't want to get beat by Pat Mahomes at all. So we've got to address that. And I think we can. So just looking forward to breaking down the matchups as we continue this week, and looking forward to PTA Live tonight. And go Pack Go, man. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me as always, Clayton. I'm grateful to be a part of this.
Yeah, no, we're grateful to have you, man. It's always a blast talking ball with you and everyone else. Chris in with the super chat. Thank you, fellas, for all the hard work. No, Chris, thank you for supporting the stream, buddy. We really appreciate it. Also want to give a special shout out to Josh Martin for the super chats today. Really appreciate you supporting the stream, buddy. Thanks to everyone in the chat. You guys absolutely rocked it. If you could hit that like button for us, that way other Packer fans can find this show as well. And let's get back tonight for PTA Live at 7 Central, 8 Eastern. We're going to do kind of a PFF preview of the Packers Chiefs, an early one, but we'll kind of show you how 12 personnel matches up against their base defense, 11 personnel matches up against their nickel, and vice versa, how their 11 personnel matches up against our nickel and their 12 personnel matches up against our base, just to kind of give an early filler. All right, what could play out in this game? Where are some of the strengths? Where are some of the weaknesses? We called some of those out against the Lions. It was a lot of fun doing that. So, with that being said, for those of you listening on the pod, thank you for making us a part of your day. As always, let's go out and be the change we want to see in the world, and go Pack Go.